This is the G Podcast with your host, Tommy B.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to episode 252 of This is the G Podcast. Yes. What's going on, y'all? I'm your host, Tommy B, and, we're that weekly recap bringing you the news, politics, pop culture, and that piping hot tea from one and only Tanya B. Everybody's on a break this week. It's King Holiday weekend, and let's say hello to our friend of the show, part of our show, a contributor, author and political analyst Harold Michael Harvey is here. Harold Michael Harvey, how you doing?
Hey, good today. Always good to be on the G Podcast. How you doing?
Thank you so much. It's always, you come on anytime. It's your time. we appreciate you, man. It's King Week. I asked you to come on. I appreciate you, taking me up on the invite. We're celebrating the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, as we always do around this time of the year in January. Something else is going on. I don't know. I think it's in Washington. I think Snoop Dogg is there, Nelly and Soulja Boy, Rick Ross might be participating in it. It was supposed to happen outdoors. Kind of remind me, it's happening in the Rotunda, I think, this year. Let's hope they don't tear it up the way they did back January 6th. 2021.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I have no clue with it. But seriously, I know. I won't pull you into my treachery and my pettiness. But the irony of this inauguration and King Day happening on the same day and overlapping is just amazing. I mean, when you think about what could have been with our other candidate, happening on King Day, it would have been just spectacular. It would have been an intertwining. Now it's, King Day is an option, for a lot of us who feel that the incoming administration 2.0 does not align with our values. And it's it's only the third time that this has happened, where inauguration has happened on King Day, the other two times with Obama's second administration and Clinton's second administration. And the crazy thing about this is it's not going to happen again until 2053. Mm-hmm. And that's just, that's the irony. Can you catch that, Harold Michael Harvey?
Work of the calendar.
I know. Oh, the gods.
Yeah.
And I just say thank you for giving us an option. I'm like Michelle Obama. Thank you. Thank you for an opt-out.
It'll be interesting to see where the nation is in
I agree.
25 years. Yeah.
I hope it's still here. So we'll see.
That is a legitimate question.
Yeah, I hope it's still here. But again, Harold Michael Harvey is here. He's an author, a political analyst, friend of the show, but also he is a father, y'all. And we have not really talked about this on the show as much, but I do want to cover it this week because I got to ask you some questions, okay? But he's a father, and let me let y'all know who he's a father of. Let's go ahead and do it. Here we go.
He was as subdued as I've seen him in a very long time. He was simply trying to stay measured for these final 30 minutes. His message, what he told me to his team at half, was simple. He said, just finish. We want to make sure that we get that done. He also said that, hey, our energy in that first half, it was off the charts. We need to keep that up. And more credited the toughness of his offense there on that final touchdown. It was, of course, on the goal line. Fourth down, he credited the way his line paved the way for his running backs to get in. And they clearly have won the physical battle.
Yes, man. Not the coach. But Coley Harvey, man. Most of you know Coley from ESPN. Tell us, man, Coley's path. How did Coley get to where he is right now on ESPN? And I'm seeing him more now than when he initially started. So it looks like he's taking on a bigger role.
I think he can credit that to Muhammad Ali.
Really?
Yeah, but we'll go back to when he's probably about 18 months old. His mother set him on the sink as she was washing dishes, and he immediately reached for the rinse nozzle and pulled the rinse nozzle out of the receptacle and put it to his mouth and started talking into it, at least trying to mouth the words.
Wow.
His mother at that time was a broadcaster, and And obviously a lot of our home time is we watch news programs as she prepared for her work as broadcaster. We'll always stay tuned to a news program. So he was accustomed to seeing people, his mom being one of them, holding a microphone. And so he grabbed the microphone. We don't know what that will lead to, but when he graduated high school,
where did he go to high school, by the way?
He went to the Lovett School here in Atlanta.
Great school. Good school.
He got a good education, and he had one of his summer projects was he had a summer program at Northwestern.
Another great school.
and so that's where he ended up going to college. So I think he missed 2 summers at Northwestern and applied. They accepted him, and he matriculated there. He wanted to be newspaper, but when he's coming out of school, he came out of high school in 2005, I think.
Yeah.
Came out of college in 2008, so maybe he came out of high school in 2004. But the newspaper print media was almost dead when he came out.
Mm-hmm.
But he had done one semester. He had to do an internship at the Macon Telegraph, which is Macon is where I grew up.
Mm-hmm. And so, I spent some time there as well, so I know it well. Yep.
So he did an internship at the Macon Telegraph, lived with my mother in my old bedroom. And and so when he finished his course at Northwestern, the Macon Telegraph offered him a job. So he went down and he worked for 4 years. He got buried there because the industry wasn't growing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he could never jump to another larger paper because they just weren't bringing people on. They were having trouble themselves.
Yeah.
And so eventually, after the first year, the people at the Telegraph sent him back to Atlanta to cover Georgia Tech athletics. And so he was able to live back at home in his bedroom,
right.
Where he would get up and go over to Georgia Tech campus every day and write articles. In fact, Macon is big Bulldog country, Georgia Bulldog country.
Wait a minute, let me stop you there. What city in Georgia is not? Poor Tech.
But here's the point of the story.
Yeah.
He made a lot of Bibb Countyans, Maconites, Georgia Tech fans.
Good for him.
He would have people writing him and saying, I learned so much about Georgia Tech from reading your stories. My mother's friends who were HBCU graduates would all applaud him and talk about what they had learned about the athletic program at Georgia Tech as a result of reading the stories he filed in Telegraph. And so the Orlando Sentinel, after about 3 years in a larger market in Orlando, offered him a post in writing sports stories for their paper. Mm-hmm. And they sent him to Tallahassee and assigned him to cover Florida State athletics.
Gotcha.
And it's ironic because he had the Florida State pennants on his wall growing up. That was one of his favorite schools. So he ends up covering Florida State athletics, both baseball and football and basketball.
Excellent.
Some track and tennis. And then after a while, the ESPN offered him a post to cover the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati.
Wow.
So he then moves up to Cincinnati.
Cold.
And I think maybe the first year he was there, Muhammad Ali dies. And so in the middle of the night, I was up working on one of my books, and I had bent over to some social media site, and he was up, had noted that I was up because he saw that I was active on a social media site. He called me and says, I've been thinking I can't sleep.
Yeah.
What's the problem, son? He says, I'm about an hour away from Louisville, and I think I could be down there in an hour and I could cover the story. He says, but I don't know if I should pitch this to my producer or not. And I said, well, you're an hour away. He says, well, I haven't been able to get anybody on the phone. I said, I'll tell you what you do. Pack for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And keep trying until you reach somebody and make the pitch.
Yeah.
And so he did. And they said, yeah, fine. It'll probably take us a couple of days to get somebody in place in Tallahassee. So he got in his car and he drove up to Louisville. And I think he got into town about 6:30 or 7 o'clock. Immediately ran into the former governor of Kentucky, Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Interviewed him. Ran into Rahman Ali's brother.
Mm-hmm.
Interviewed him, and then he began to file stories.
Gotcha.
And he filed these stories all through Wednesday by himself. So he was the face of ESPN in the coverage of Muhammad Ali's death.
Mm-hmm.
So on Thursday, they had probably a dozen reporters in town. But they said, I tell you what, since you carried the water from Saturday to Wednesday, we're going to start our Friday coverage, and Friday was the day of the service.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to start our Friday coverage with you. Want you at the home as the family is getting in the car to go pick up Ali and en route to the church. And then when the service is over, we want you to hightail it over to the cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll conclude our coverage with you as the family enters the cemetery. So a couple of weeks after Ali was laid to rest,
Mm-hmm.
one of the head guys at ESPN called him and says, we've been talking about you for the last couple of weeks, and we figured it was a time for us to call you and have a conversation with you.
Wow. That is amazing. That and the rest is history. Wow. What a way to launch your career. That's amazing.
And you never know where breaks come from.
Yeah, you never know. You got to be. I mean, it's about being prepared for the opportunity, and he was prepared. Good stuff. Good stuff. Are you a proud papa? You sound like it. You got it all. You already had the story laid out.
It's what happened, and it's incredible watching it unfold.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Let me give it to you again, and Coley. What's up, Coley? Man, good stuff, man. But you have a lot to be proud of. He's doing a great job. He should have given you tickets and me tickets to the Bahama Bowl this year when he went to the Bahama Bowl. But that's another story. You call him up and tell him. I saw him on the Bahama Bowl. Come on, man.
He covered the Olympics.
Yeah, Olympics too. Send me tickets, bro. Yeah. But you played sports. You played, you played sports throughout your career life. And I want to ask you this question. I was kind of chatting with Mike. Had Mike Roberts on last week. He didn't go into detail, but he gave me some opinion. And you've written about sports. You have a book where you talk about the Negro League and so on and so forth. But I want to talk to you about something that's a little bit more near and dear to my heart, which all that is that you do. But this one's really near. It's a question I'm having that really is coming up as I've gotten older. I have to ask you about the Braves, the Hawks, and the Falcons. Now, the Braves have really gotten over the hump, considering where I grew up. They've prevailed. They've got 2 championships, am I correct, since their time in Atlanta. They've got 2 World Series, recent, and before that, they won one in the 90s, I think. If I'm
They lost in the 90s. They didn't win.
They lost, so they've only won one.
Only won one.
I know definitely in the, recent. I thought they had already won another, but needless to say, they've gotten over the hump.
They won their conference multiple years in a row.
Multiple years. They dominated. Yeah.
The 90s, they definitely dominated the National League West, I think.
Yeah. So they have been dominant in baseball within their conference, and they've won a World Series. Okay. Why do you think the Hawks and the Falcons, and we just give it about, just a minute or so, a couple of minutes. And I just want your thought on this. Why do you think the Hawks and Falcons continue to underachieve?
Well, I'm going to answer that question, but let me go back and correct myself. That you are correct. They have won 2 because they did win the other year.
Yeah, that's
the reason. And but they didn't win in the 90s.
Okay, but they have won 2 though, correct?
Yeah, I think it is 2.
Okay, definitely 2. Okay, but why do you think the Hawks and Falcons continue to underachieve?
I think it stems from the top, and the top being ownership, not management, but the top being ownership.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, winners, you got to be a dog. Maybe that's not a good adjective.
But you know what? I get it.
You got to want it.
Yes.
That has to be your goal. Is that when the season starts every year, you go into training camp with the goal in mind is that at the end of the season, you're the top dog out of all the dogs in the league.
Mm-hmm.
You're on top. I don't think that the sports franchises in Atlanta, other than the hockey team, have that mentality when they start out.
Oh, you mean and maybe the soccer team, Atlanta United.
I meant the soccer team, yes.
Yeah.
I don't think they start out with that hunger to be on top of the hill at the end of the season. And you got to have that to motivate you. And there are reasons, financial reasons, why they don't have that. Playing the high level of baseball that the Braves play is very lucrative for the television station that owns the television network that owns them.
The rights to it.
Right. No. I mean, their ownership is a Liberty Media.
Oh, yeah. Correct. Yeah.
They make a pretty penny just based on the level of success that the Braves have had. They don't have to win the World Series.
Right.
That's a corporation, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you turn to the Falcons, there is a human being who owns them.
Blank. Arthur Blank.
Yes. And, of course, from the top, he has to have that hunger to be number one. Now, to be number one, you've got to be willing to spend the resources to bring the best talent possible to your team.
Yeah.
The Yankees were picked to win the World Series this last season, and they got in the series, but their star players sort of fizzled when they met the Dodgers for the series.
Right.
But the ownership went out and bought the players, paid players that they thought would take them over the hump.
A ton of money too. Most in the in I don't know. I would say league history.
Yeah. I mean, they
between that and New York.
Yeah. They spent the money, and they got their team into the playoffs. That was a big push to see who was going to get Ohtani.
Mm-hmm.
The Dodgers got him, and the Dodgers won the series.
Right.
Okay. So those franchises spent the money to get the top talent that will put them in a position to win. The Hawks don't do that. They have a nice roster. They have a lot of good young players on that team.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to really go out and spend some money and get one of those guys who just have this big heart. What's the boy from Atlanta? The young man from Atlanta who was a monster back last spring during the playoff run.
We're talking football or basketball?
Basketball. He plays in Minnesota, I believe. Davis.
I know. Ant-Man.
Ant-Man.
Yeah.
That boy that young man has a big heart.
Yes, he's a leader. He's outspoken, and he's a leader who truly leads that team. He's the face of that team.
Man, on any play, he thinks he can take his man.
Yeah.
Curry thinks he can take his man on any play.
Okay.
Kevin
Durant
thinks he can beat his man on every play.
Yeah.
That's the level of guy you need. Lamar Jackson.
Yes, Lamar very much so, and just like Mahomes, they lead their team. Yeah.
They lead their teams, but in Atlanta, we don't do that. We had David Justice, who had this big heart on the Atlanta Braves back in the 80s, maybe into the 90s. Yeah, into the 90s.
Yeah.
And they let him go.
Yeah.
The Yankees picked him up. They knew he had a big heart.
Yeah.
He went to New York and brought that franchise back up. It had been floundering before they got justice.
Yeah.
But they didn't pay him. He got away. They had Dominique Wilkins over at the Hawks.
Oh, it was when they let Dominique go. It was, for me, I think I was absent for a few years after that. Following him. Yeah.
Well, made no sense. I mean,
that was tough.
I mean, that guy Wilkins had big heart.
Yeah.
He didn't think anybody, Magic or Bird, he didn't think any of those guys were better than him.
Yeah.
And he would take them to the rim whenever you got the ball in his hands. And that's the type of players you need in order to bring championship.
Good stuff. And I have no argument whatsoever, because I agree 100% with what you're saying. I get it. It's an investment, but it's also about the leader of the team, who's truly leading each team. I agree. I know the coach is the quote unquote leader, but when you have players when you mention the teams that you've mentioned, it sparks the fan base, and it also sparks the locker room. So I'm in full agreement. All right, just a couple of things, and y'all, we're not doing ESPN all show, but I had to get that in. I'm sorry, I had to get that in. Coming off Coley and knowing what I know about you, and your exposure to sports and writing sports for a number of years. But I will say, I mean, we're in a really sport intensive time. You've got the NFL going on as we speak right now. You've got college football playoffs going on as we speak right now. In addition to that, basketball season is happening, and we're a few weeks away from, within a month away, of the All-Star game. So, yeah, lots going on. And speaking of that, this weekend, you got the Chiefs and the Texans, as we tape. That's going to happen on this day as we tape. Then we got the Commanders and the Lions. You got the Rams and the Eagles in the game I'm really waiting on, and I'm rooting for Lamar Jackson this year, Ravens and the Bills. So the conference championships happen next Sunday as we tape. Next Sunday, the 26th, based on the winners from this current weekend, the divisional playoffs, and then Super Bowl happens. Super Bowl 59 happens in New Orleans, February 9th. And that's going to happen 6:30 at Fox. Man, thank you. You know what? I got to thank you so much, because you know what? I've been anxious after the letdown. I'm not going to go into it because that's a whole nother podcast. But I've been asking people, because, and I want to say this, and I'm going to move on, y'all. So trust me, I'm going to move on. But I have to say, I hate when people say, be patient. Because for somebody who's lived here all their lives, and you've watched this cycle of doom, it's hard to be patient. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then they say, oh, you're a homer. Don't worry about it. You don't count. Because there's so many transient people who come into the city who just got here. And I say, dude, they've been letting me down since 69. I was 5. So I'm going to leave it at that. But I want for all of you folks who are transients, who just got here, understand the pain of the native. That's all I got to say. Hey, man, let's go ahead. I have talked too much about this. We got to do news with Syracuse Mike. Hang tight. I'll come right back to you. Here we go.
News team, assemble!
It's time for the Week in News with Syracuse Mike.
According to a 130-page report from former special counsel Jack Smith, his team concluded that President-elect Donald Trump tried to overturn the 2020 election. Smith's team also believed they could have secured a conviction against Trump. The investigation ended after Trump won the November election. There is a long-standing policy by the U.S. Justice Department that bars the prosecution of a sitting president. Joe Biden delivered his final address as president to the nation Wednesday evening.
This will be my final address to you from the American people from the Oval Office.
He quickly acknowledged the three-phase deal to end the fighting between Israel and Hamas, which involved the incoming administration as well.
This plan was developed and negotiated by my team and will be largely implemented by the incoming administration. That's why I told my team to keep the incoming administration fully informed because that's how it should be.
Mr. Biden also highlighted his accomplishments, including job growth, but had a warning about the oligarchy, saying it's a, quote, dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. Observers immediately said, following the address, that was a reference to people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and others. There is a ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel. Qatar announced the agreement Wednesday evening in Doha. The ceasefire is set to begin on Sunday and will last 42 days. One of the key parts of the agreement will be the exchange of hostages detained by Hamas and Palestinians in Israeli prisons. According to President Biden, Americans will be part of the hostage release. Emergency aid is also expected to pour into Gaza. According to multiple reports, the Biden administration does not plan to take action against TikTok when the ban is scheduled to take effect on Sunday. They have decided to leave the issue to the new Trump administration. However, there have been reports that ByteDance, the Chinese company that owns TikTok, will disable the app in the U.S. on Sunday in order to drive home a point about its popularity. It's not clear if that will happen. The Supreme Court issued a ruling this morning concerning the popular TikTok app. It was no surprise that the High Court said it can be banned in the U.S. This week, there has been some backtracking by both political parties. Neither appears to want to take blame for causing TikTok to go away in this country. The Biden administration has decided to let the incoming Trump administration deal with the issue, and the head of TikTok is even scheduled to attend Donald Trump's inauguration on Monday. TikTok CEO Shouji Chu posted this message for users after the court ruling.
I want to thank President Trump for his commitment to work with us to find a solution that keeps TikTok available in the United States. This is a strong stand for the First Amendment and against arbitrary censorship.
So what happens Sunday when the ban is scheduled to take effect? No one really seems to know for sure. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office says the release of hostages held in Gaza since Hamas's October 2023 attack on Israel is expected to begin on Sunday. After saying they wouldn't meet until Hamas accepts all elements of the ceasefire agreement, Netanyahu's security cabinet met Friday. Two notable deaths Thursday. David Lynch, the filmmaker behind the TV series Twin Peaks, has passed away at the age of 78. And Mr. Baseball, Bob Uecker, the voice of the Milwaukee Brewers, has died. He was 90.
I know you're familiar with Uecker.
Yeah.
Uecker was everywhere, pop culture and the sport. So rest in power, Bob Uecker. Go ahead. You had a point. Go ahead.
I go back to 1964 with Bob Uecker. He was part of the St. Louis Cardinal team that won the World Series that year over my favorite team, the New York Yankees.
Wow.
And, also on that 74 team was Orlando Cepeda. The fist bump. Yeah. Oh, at least the high five. The high five.
Right.
The high five got its start in 1964 World Series because every time Orlando Cepeda would do something good, or one of his teammates did when they came back to the dugout, he would give them a high five.
Yeah, wow, good stuff.
Remember, after that series, when we went to school, all the brothers were giving each other a high five.
Wow, so he started that. Good stuff.
Yes.
Wow.
I saw
No, go ahead.
I know that was I saw that iconic gesture in our community begin. Not everybody does it.
Right. Hey, I want to ask you about a few things on this, but we're going to get to the heart of it, the opinion part of it, when we get into politics toward the end of the show. The Jack Smith report, in a nutshell, what's your thought?
Which report did you ask me about?
The Jack Smith, basically. Am I saying, I think it's
you say it right.
Special Counsel, Smith. What are your thoughts on that?
He laid it out. He said that he believed he would have gotten a conviction against the president for the crimes as charged if the case had gone to trial. Yeah. And it got derailed by a very activist judge who at every turn came to the former president's defense and sort of threw one stumbling block after another in Jack Smith's path in order to prevent him from bringing that case to trial.
Yeah. And Joe Biden's farewell, I don't know if you had a chance to watch it. What were your thoughts on that?
Tour de force. He laid out his accomplishments, which were many, and he also left a clarion call to the country. And as we just heard in the news account from Syracuse Mike, the president said that there's a group of oligarchs who are out to control the country.
But let me ask you, Harold Michael Harvey, when have the oligarchs never existed? They've always been here.
And they're never front and center, though.
What's that?
They've never been front and center that you would see them. In fact,
they still run it.
Yes, you always knew there was somebody behind the scenes running it, but now you get to see the people who are doing it, and they are doing it like in your face, like we don't really care. But before there was some need to either disguise what was taking place or make you not realize that you actually realize going on. So, it's always been there, but it's more in your face now.
Okay. Real quick, ceasefire. You think it's going to hold?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you say that? I have my thoughts as to why. We're just ahead. We tape on Saturday, and I think we're looking like a day away from the official ceasefire. It looks like. I have concerns that I think the condition of the hostages, because we've not seen that, and if you give the hostages back, who's to say that most of the hostages will be deceased? That's my concern.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot of body bags tomorrow on Sunday.
And I think that may start a whole new round of hostility.
It's a new discussion.
Yeah. One last thing, TikTok. We're on TikTok, and we've already made the transition, or we're still there, but we're transitioning all our videos to Fanbase, which is owned by Isaac Hayes III, and I'll talk about that at the end of the show.
Good move.
Does it have a chance?
Fanbase or TikTok?
Oh, no. Let's hope. I'm hopeful for Isaac Hayes III, but TikTok.
Never say never. You've got the president-elect who changed his opinion. I think last year, this time he was he approved the ban.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's sort of like has changed his position.
Yeah,
wants to see what he can negotiate. But I don't know. I don't know. The Supreme Court. If you recall, when Congress passed their legislation about banning TikTok,
right?
You had me on your show,
and
at that time I said, well, if it is proven that TikTok is really controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, and that they have a right to look into the private information of all Americans who are associated with TikTok, and our government is probably within its rights to ban it.
Issue of national security.
Yeah, and so the United States Supreme Court, in its ruling this week, agreed with Congress that TikTok poses a national security interest of risk to the American public.
Yeah.
So should they get a reprieve? Probably not.
If they haven't changed their procedures, which they haven't really, and there's no new owner. Yeah.
And that going into this weekend, Chinese posture is, or at least the TikTok posture is, they're not going to change, anything.
Yeah.
But we know that the president-elect, he makes decisions based upon personal interests and also the personal interests of personal friends of his. So
thus, you got the CEO of TikTok at his inauguration. I'll leave it at that.
So if they have a chance, that probably spells that we'll have TikTok for a while.
Some money has been exchanged. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you again, Syracuse Mike, for the headlines. Tiny B's out this week, but I do, You know, a lot of folks are saying, well, you know, I hate, stuff's going to be all over. When I say stuff, you know what I'm talking about, all over the TV Monday. And I want to give you some alternatives to watch. So here we go.
What you watching this week, Tommy B?
You know, King in the Wilderness is on HBO. So if you have access to HBO or you can get that password from somebody, it's a chilling glimpse into the last years of King's life. It's pretty fascinating. Take a look at it on HBO. Also, MLK FBI is on Hulu, and that's a deep look into the FBI's plot to destroy King and derail the civil rights movement. King, the miniseries, which took a lot of flack back in the 70s, late 70s, is on Amazon. You remember that, King? They said, I forgot. Yeah,
I do, but
Whitfield was the actor.
I thought it was really 80s, was it?
78, close enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically they were saying he portrayed King in a weak way. Then you had, I think, Cicely Tyson played Coretta Scott, and they just didn't like it got banned. I mean, it got a lot of critical bashing. I think people look back on it, and it's a well-acted series from 1978, miniseries. It's on Amazon, so if you have Amazon, check it out. Also, the annual King Day service is live as we tape. By the time you get this, it would have probably already played, but at 9 a.m., Dr. William Barber will be the keynote speaker. You can go to kingcenter.org to stream it. In Atlanta, it's going to be on Fox 5, I think, as it has been for a while. And you can also stream it on YouTube and Facebook. And again, if you're hearing this after that, it's going to be on demand. So if you didn't get a chance, you won't have a chance to watch it. Just know that all this will be on demand on these sites. Also, don't feel trapped by the Inauguration Network takeover. Roy Woods Jr.'s comedy special, Lonely Flowers, is on Hulu. A lot of really good insight. He's on CNN, of course. He's got a new show, comedy special, which has been renewed for season 2 on CNN. Also, watch 6888. Which is on Netflix if you haven't had a chance to watch it. Very inspirational. Look at women in history who made a significant difference in delivering mail in World War II. And that has become, believe it or not, it is Tyler Perry's top streaming Netflix movie. It has surpassed everything he has on Netflix, so kudos to him for that. Also, a lot of folks, we're looking at 27 deaths in the fire that happened out in L.A. There's a fire aid benefit concert. List of performers include Earth, Wind & Fire, Lady Gaga, Pink, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Stevie Nicks, Sting, whole lot more. And that concert's happening January 30th at the Kia Forum and the Intuit Dome, concurrently beginning at 6 p.m. All right, so you got plenty to watch, y'all. Don't be walking around saying, man, I'm tired of looking. No, you have alternatives, okay? So let's just go ahead and use your alternatives. A lot of inspirational stuff as well. Harold Michael Harvey, let's go ahead. We still have some time, definitely, and I want to get some insight. So let's go ahead and do this.
The Political Roundtable.
Hey, I want to get your thoughts. 68% of Americans polled, and this was a CNN poll and a few other polls, are saying that Biden's presidency is a failure. I want to get your thoughts, and I'll chime in. Go ahead. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's, opinions are like buttholes, everybody's got one.
I kind of knew you were going to go there, but either way, go ahead.
But, so you can ask anybody.
In the Christian way that you are, but go ahead.
So that's what you get when you take a poll these days.
Yeah.
Any and everybody has an opinion, and they voice that opinion. Whether or not that opinion is based upon sound facts, not it's what I think.
Yeah, but that's pretty significant. That's pretty significant.
61%, yeah.
68, close to 61 to 68 is what I've seen. Go ahead.
Well, so that's what I think about it.
Okay.
Is that any and everybody has an opinion today.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that you can put very much credibility into opinions that are expressed by people. I saw this piece on it may have been Instagram or TikTok, where a comedian, I don't remember her name, but she is running down the contributions of George Washington Carver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she says that he was a bad end, and he was a MF in about peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
It just used very
We say derogatory
language,
mm-hmm.
describing the contributions made to this country by George Washington Carver. So I wrote and said, and basically said that this was very derogatory towards his character. He wouldn't appreciate it. Untold people, young people, said, well, she has every right to express that opinion.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to say this, and I don't mean to cut you off. I get where you're going. I'm going to say this. I think, as you know, Dr. King's, toward the end of his life, or as, you went on toward the end of the civil rights movement, but toward the end of his life.
I remember.
He was not looked upon fondly.
I know.
It was tough, and now that you've had a chance to review the legacy, look at Jimmy Carter. Same situation toward the end of his tenure, his first term. He was not looked upon fondly going into the Reagan administration. And, they looked at him as, a lot of people called him the worst president. So I think currently the atmosphere, because of what people have felt, leads to what you see in the polls. I think going forward, he'll be appreciated more when you look at all the things he did. I do think the Democratic Party and his administration did not do a good job in the real time that these things were being accomplished in touting and promoting it. He did the fewest press conferences than most presidents, his predecessors, and he did the fewest fireside chats or, primetime visits with the public. Whereas you're going to see Trump just about every day. And I think his visibility would have helped his own situation, but hindsight is 2020. Okay. So I get the polls, but I also understand that his legacy going forward, because I've benefited, my household has benefited from some of the things that he's done, and I've seen it firsthand. The problem is a lot of people won't see the benefit until years later, So that's just my opinion on Biden. It's unfortunate, but, I hate to say, to a certain extent, it's their own doing in terms of what we see. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean it as a marketer, as somebody who's dealt with the public. It's, sometimes, there are people who feel like they can't. Some people just can't toot their own horn. Whereas, hey, Trump is all about that. And as much as that's one thing he does well, whether it's right or wrong, he doesn't care. But go ahead. Last word on that, because we got one. I got one more thing. We got a couple more things to ask. Go ahead.
Please hear me out on this.
Yeah, I am.
Respectfully, I don't think it was what Biden and his administration and team did or didn't do.
Yeah. I'm gonna get you on the next point. Go ahead.
I listen to you. What I think it was is that the opposition constantly berated him and his policies, just like you had Democrats constantly berating the other guy about how silly or stupid or how ugly his hair looked. The other side did the same thing to Biden, and that stuck because they did more of it. If you go back to the confirmation hearings that took place this week, when you had the candidates testify about serious matters, they didn't tell you what they would do as Secretary of Defense, or as any other secretary. They told you how bad the Democrat who holds the office today was. They would even tell you how bad President Obama was.
Yeah.
They would tell you how bad Joe Biden was. So the conversation coming from the the other side has never been about discussing the issues of where they are, how they break, and that breaks on benefiting or not benefiting the American public. It's all about a negative dramatization of the Democratic side or Biden. And I think you heard more of that. And that is what, to me, fuels the high percentage of people who say he didn't have a successful administration. Now, I agree with you. He will be in the rear view. He's going to be viewed as having had a very successful term. But now let's stop and look at.
Let me stop you there because I got two more questions to ask.
I got a very important point to relate.
Okay, let's make it the last point.
I will. Carter administration. You look at the Carter administration.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Carter tried to bring this country to energy independence.
Right.
In the mid 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
And he tried to bring us to the point of getting a grip on the environment in the mid 1970s.
Yeah.
They dismissed him as not being an effective president and ran him out of office after one term. Look where we are in terms of energy independence today, and where we are in terms of where the environment is today. So we negative these people, and we boo-hoo these people who have good ideas and policies for the long-term advantage of the country, and the country doesn't progress. So that's what is going to happen when they take another look at what Biden was able to accomplish. You're going to look in the rear view, like people were saying this past week at the passing of Carter. Right now, Carter's gone on, but what could Carter have done if he had had another term and had an opportunity to establish his programs on energy renewal and on saving the environment? How much better position would the country be in, and the people of the country had happened? And so so that's what I had to say about that.
Okay, my last thing, and I'm going to say this, and we're going to move on to what's next. I have to say this. The issue, and this includes the next thing I want to talk to you about, I truly believe a lot of this, because I think a lot of it's also coming from within the party, is disappointment in the fact that we have 2.0 that's about to be inaugurated. I think a lot of us going to vote in 2020 was based on never allowing what's about to happen again. Okay? The fact, and I know it's not all, we can't put all that on one man's shoulder, but we can look at, for example, this week, Merrick Garland had his farewell, as a lot of the administration's members of the cabinet are doing their farewell speeches. A lot of people are looking at Merrick Garland as a failure, as an AG, because of what we're about to witness as we tape on Saturday, on Monday. I mean, that's it, 100%. Not his focus on civil rights, a lot of things that he accomplished, but that one big thing. So I think Biden pays the price because, as who said it, Truman, the buck stops at his desk. Okay, so I think the failure to stop what's about to happen, 2.0, would probably lead to this 68%, because I think 68% even comes within the party from a big chunk of that. Finally, well, one more thing, and then finally I want to just make a note. Michelle Obama is not attending the inauguration. First of all, let me give this to Michelle Obama. Let me make sure I can do it. She was already a hero, but now she's like climbed the list. Even did this.
Yeah, there you go.
She has climbed the ladder among my heroes. So I'm going to say that to Michelle Obama. I'm sure you probably feel the same way.
I do.
I don't blame her. I'm happy for her. She has moved on with her life. I think politics from the beginning was never a happy place for her. She saw her family disparaged and degraded. She watched her husband degraded. She watched her kids degraded. She probably felt, can you imagine as a parent, your kids go away to school knowing that they're connected to you, and you got these nuts who made crazy threats. They're out in the world. So I don't blame her. And I wish her happiness. She lost her mom. I wish her happiness, man. And I hope, quite frankly, that this has been a good part of her therapy. And I'm going to leave it at that. I don't know if you have any other words to say on that.
Kudos to Michelle Obama.
Yeah, good deal. On a final note, former ambassador and Atlanta Mayor Andrew Young has been hospitalized, and we wish him the best. I don't want to, speculate what's going on. I think in the news, someone, I don't want to mention it, but, hopefully, I saw him. I don't know if you saw the Carter funeral. Mm-hmm. He was there as well. So hope, get well soon. All right, y'all. Hey, real quick, I've got a couple of things to say, and I know you have some shout outs. So let's go ahead and do this.
It's time to wrap it up. This is the G Podcast.
All right, you got any shout outs, Harold Michael Harvey?
Shout out to Coley Harvey.
I hope he gets to watch this. I hope he takes a minute. Tell him I'm a radio guy. I don't do TV, so forgive me.
His mom was a radio gal.
Yes, legendary. So great. I've got to just say, we love your thoughts, y'all. You can scan the QR code on our logo, social media. Our links are there. Also, all of our social media links are in the QR code when you see it. Choose the people poll. If you have a voicemail, leave us a voicemail. We'll play back the best. Don't forget to support the podcast, y'all. It's our $25 for 2025, just one time. It's not a monthly. We're not going to do you like NPR. Give 25 once and you're good to go. We're going to do this until the mid-year. Again, you can make a one-time pledge, use our QR code, click the support link. And again, I mentioned we are now on Fanbase, owned by Isaac Hayes III. He is CEO and founder. We have an account there, and the majority of our video content is posted there now. Again, thank you, Harold Michael Harvey. And I got to say this, man, condolences to my high school basketball coach, man. Found out just a couple of days ago he passed away. His wife, who actually worked at the school and was the women's coach, Miss Sutheus Martin, is survived. She's still there with, handling all the services that are coming up. But I've got to say, thank you, Coach Bobby Martin. Really forever grateful to Coach Martin. You're in sports, man. I was 8th grade, and I always loved the sport. I always played with the older guys, because I played with my dad and his older cousins. And so I was 8th grade. I moved to a new area, and he saw me play in the 8th grade, and he said, "Hey, you need to play varsity next year." And I said, "No, I'm going to play B team." with my friends. And he said, "No, you're going to play varsity." And I said, "Well, I guess I'm playing varsity." And I took his advice, and it was a successful run for me at Briarwood High School. I was, you know how it is, Harold Michael Harvey, when you're the young kid going in against the seniors and the juniors.
They're going to pound you.
There was a hazing. But you know what? I played at Ben Hill Gym. I played at Adams Park Gym. And it toughens you up. That's where Dominique and Terry Fair, a lot of those guys enjoyed. So, when I got my opportunity to jump in there, it was a good opportunity to play with the older guys, man. So I appreciate him for saying, "Hey, you need to be here, and I'm putting you here." Through the years, man, I had some amazing teammates. They were excellent. We had some amazing accomplishments in terms of our seasons, man. I just have to say, thank you, Coach Martin, man. Rest in power. To his family, again, to Miss Thea. We called her Miss Theus, Miss Martin, the Martin family. Rest in power. Yes, yes.
Yes.
Hey, man, so, and also I want to say I interviewed Coach Martin, the Martins, in episode 36 of This is the G Podcast, where I highlighted my favorite teachers. It was on my birthday in 2020, and it's available on the podcast library if you want to go check it out. Again, thank you, Harold Michael Harvey. Thank you so much, man. Let me, I cannot leave this podcast without doing this for you, man. You know, as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And go to HaroldMichaelHarvey.com. All things Harold Michael Harvey are there as well, y'all. So with that, episode 252 is in the can. Again, thank you, Mr. Harvey, for doing you, for just being who you are. Thank you so much. And y'all, you know, the Arctic blast is coming. We had a long conversation about Atlanta weather and some of the stuff we've seen from 93 and 74 and 2014. So y'all hang in there. It looks like it may happen only in middle Georgia, but you know, I think we're going to get, without a doubt, if we're talking about the majority of the week being below freezing, y'all be safe out there, okay? Episode 252 is in the can. Peace and power to the people, y'all. Have a great week. Safe week. Stay warm.
You've been listening to This is the G Podcast. And This is the G Podcast is a production of the Castropolis Podcast Network. Thanks for listening.